on, everyone? James Numbers here, and welcome back to another episode of the Political Freedom Fighters Podcast. In this episode, I have with you all here today a Libertarian who is running for North Carolina Senate District 8. And with that being said, I want to introduce to all of you Tim White. How are you, sir?
What's going on, James? How you doing today?
I am doing awesome. So my first question for you is...
Good, man. Good.
Thanks. My first question for you is, who are you and what do you do?
Basically, I'm just a normal guy. Wealth management is what I do. I run a small boutique practice. I have two offices, one in Leland, North Carolina, one in Charlotte, North Carolina. And basically, I like to say I'm a problem solver. So I help a lot of vets. Being one myself, it's a passion of mine, and help a lot of seniors answer tough questions as far as how to make money and how to keep money from Uncle Sam, basically.
That is good to hear. So let's talk about a little bit about your history.
Originally born and raised in New Hampshire. Live free or die, baby. Best say motto ever. I'll say that forever. But then got down to North Carolina by way of the military. I was stationed out in Fort Bragg in the early 2000s, from 2000 to 2005. Went back to New England for a few years, but then I decided I didn't want to shovel snow anymore, and I like my time here in Carolina, so I moved back down in 2010, and been here ever since. So when I originally got down here, I was did contract work with nuclear plants, actually, and travel around to threat assessments for them. I like say physical security, not cyber security. So I'm not that smart. But travel around, do a threat assessment, would train up security staff, and then we had a team that we try to break into the nuclear plant, make sure that they could stop us and run drills. But then got into financial advising because after I got out of the Army, I was an enlisted guy in the Army, so I didn't make a ton of money. But when I got my contract job, it was the first time I ever really got paid, and I realized that between federal and state, I paid almost 40% in taxes. So, and this was right after the 2008 elections, where we found out, hey, Mitt Romney only paid 22%, Barack Obama only paid 26%. Remember when that started to become a thing? And I was like, well, I'm doing well, but not like these guys. How does this work? So I went to use my GI Bill, went to school for accounting, and which made me figure out very quickly I did not want to be an accountant. But also had me figure out that one of the ways that they were doing it was max capital gains at the time was 15%. That's why you always hear, hey, Warren Buffett pays less percentage-wise than his secretary. So I was like, well, I obviously have to get in the investment world. If this is how it works, this is how the rules that we're playing by, I need to know the rules of the game. So I did that, and so in 2014, went ahead and got my Series 7 license, got all my Series 65 license, all that, and have gotten multiple certifications since then. And that's a big thing of what I do, is not just the investments, but structuring them correctly. I'm very much an anti-tax guy, because I feel like anytime the U.S. government takes tax money from people, it doesn't go to where it's supposed to go. They just wind up wasting it. So I believe that more money in people's pockets is better for them, and it's actually better for us as a community when people aren't giving away 40 to 50% of their paycheck between local, state, and federal dollars. That just goes to things that are wasteful. If it was actually going to a good cause, I could support it, but being that most of it just goes to line either politicians' pockets or their friends' pockets, I just can't do that anymore. And I so finally decided to get involved, because had an issue with it for a long time, but too many of us, I think normal people are not happy about it, but it's going to take normal people getting into offices to actually change things, unfortunately. So I'm a very reluctant uh, person to join the cause, but if not me, who, I guess.
Fair enough, but you mentioned 40%. That is a lot. Where does that come from?
That's a great question. So basically, you have your, depending on what state you live in. I mean, gosh, if you live in New York or California, and you're in the 36% federal tax bracket, and then in North Carolina, obviously we're paying our 4.5% on top of that. Or if you're in a state like California or New York, you're paying anywhere from 8 to 12% on top of that. Half your income is being taken from you, but in my opinion, being stolen from you. Because taxing income is, to me, is just wrong. You're basically, anytime that you are entitled to somebody else's labor, that is wrong. So if you have to work, realistically speaking, till April or May before you actually clear a paycheck, I don't care how much you make, that's just not right. And so nobody else is entitled to somebody else's labor. And I mean, that's just a base principle that I have.
Alrighty, fair enough. So, why are you running for NC Senate District 8?
Because I think that, honesty and integrity have kind of been taken out of not just federal, but local politics. And obviously local is where you can make the most amount of difference. I mean, I want third parties to have representation and good representation when running against, the big two here, which no matter which one seems to get elected, we get the same result. It's more government control and it's more money out of your pocket. It's more, they get to tell you how you can live your life, and you're going to pay us for that pleasure of us telling you what you can and cannot do, whether it be in your social life, whether it be on your property, whether it be, hey, we're going to fix these roads up, but it's going to be an extremely long project and it's not going to be, cost effective whatsoever. When if I lived in a neighborhood, with the neighborhood and I could get together and say, hey, we want to redo this, we would do it ourselves, or the businesses would do it themselves because they want to ship goods. It is very inefficient the way that the government process does it.
Fair enough. So why did you decide to become a libertarian?
Because neither of the big two, neither of the R&Ds really represented me completely. Because of, when I look at things as far as socially, I think it's your business or it's my business. So I don't care what you do in your life, as long as it doesn't affect my life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Whether I agree with it or not, I don't believe that I have a right to tell you what to do. And I also believe it's my money or it's your money. You do with it what you please. You shouldn't have somebody else digging into your pocket every month. I mean, it's basically it's an old mob protection scheme, is what it is as far as I'm concerned, is the way that it really, and it doesn't matter if it's an R&D behind their name. That's really the way that they've operated. And I'm sick of that. And but I neither of the big two could I completely get behind, because they always want to reserve the right to tell you what to do in some certain way, shape, or form, or they think they know better than you. I'm not that guy. I'm not saying I know better than anybody. I know what works for me, and I want you to do what works for you, and stay out of it unless you're hurting other people, basically.
Fair enough. Okay, my next question for you is, what's your thoughts on the major parties?
Well, that's a very broad question. How much time do you have?
Oh, we got enough time.
So right now, I think what we have is I think the two major parties are, especially when you get onto a higher federal level, it's really only one party. As we like to say, it's two sides of the same coin. They pretend to they take these issues that really have nothing to do with people's day-to-day lives, and they make a thing of it. They make a spectacle of it. It's like the WWE now, right? When you go in Congress, we have a handful of good congressmen, and the rest of them are just bolstering and saying things that they know their constituents that they can rally them behind. But really, nothing happens. No change happens. So I think they are basically, like I said, we get the same result no matter who's in charge. And unfortunately, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you keep voting for the same thing and you expect a different result. We have the definition of insanity here, which is, oh, well, we'll go the blue route for 4 to 6 years. We're like, oh, that doesn't work. Now let's go the red route for 4 to 6. Oh, that doesn't work. Now we switch back and forth. But like I said, the same thing happens. No matter which of the two big parties are in charge, because I feel like they're really just working together. The end game is still the same. Get more control, get more people's money. That's it.
Alrighty, fair enough. So what's your opinion on the Republican incumbent, William Rabon? I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but
Bill Rabon. Basically, as far as he's been an incumbent for a long time now, and our area in Brunswick County we've been doing the same thing, not getting any better. And as far as being a representative that is honesty, integrity, and keeping out of people's lives, not avoiding government control and avoiding taking taxpayer money, he hasn't been doing that. We're getting the same old thing, and people just haven't had another option. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? So I'm trying to basically put it in a position where you can actually have real change. We can actually do something different. We can actually try to, instead of doing status quo, just accepting the half truths and lies and accepting that the political machine just keeps chugging down the way. We can actually try to do something different, which obviously Bill Rabon been an incumbent for as long as he is, that you're not getting anything different. You know what I mean? He's lost the pulse of the people he's supposed to represent.
fair enough. My next question for you, let's talk about the Democratic challenger. It's not looking like the Democratic challenger is going to win based off of Mr. Rabon's consistent victories over the years. So I guess my question is, why can't the Democrats win this race?
So it's obviously very difficult in an area like Brunswick County. You have it's a smaller area. Your big cities are Southport, Leland, and Shiloh. So it's a very red area. And it's easy for Bill to placate to the base there, and it's a little bit more difficult for, especially what Democrats have been doing in a national level with all the the forcing of vaccines, the wokeism, the really where, and even going away from, they used to be the party of free speech, and they even screwed that up lately. So it's tough for anybody to be locally represented and being a registered Democrat or being a blue person. And the Democratic Party of the 1980s and the 1990s would hate what it's become now. So basically all Bill has to do is have a couple stumping points and just say, hey, I'm not the crazy one, or I'm the least crazy of the two, basically. And it makes it a very easy race to win. So basically, I'm coming at it from a different angle. I'm very practical on what I do. What I care most about is civil liberties and the economy. I feel like if we can make sure that we knock those out, we're going to be good. We'll be okay as a society. I believe in people's freedom with their choices, and I believe what starts with people's freedom with their money. So if you have more money in your pocket and we give people more choices in America, that is a good thing. But unfortunately, we've been limited on that lately.
Fair enough. Anyways, let's go over your platform. What is your platform?
Kind of, I'll reiterate what it is. Kind of already said it. My platform is really freedom caucus. It's the Constitution and freedom. If we get back to, and not just give it lip service, right? Like actually get back to the Constitution, which means, hey, I believe in freedom of speech, but I really believe in freedom of speech, meaning if I don't agree with you, I don't get all pissy and say you don't have the right to say it. We've gotten that from both parties now lately. They want freedom of speech when it works for them, but as soon as they hear something they don't like, they'll step in and say, well, we have to censor this person. I disagree. I believe in it all the time, and I believe in civil liberties as far as long as your actions don't affect me or how I make my living or somebody else or cause me harm. I don't have to agree with it, and I'm not going to try to change your behavior or make you do something different or tell you that I'm coming from this higher moral standard than you have. Who am I to say that I have a higher moral standard, or who is anybody else to say that they have a higher moral standard than somebody else? I just disagree with that. So my platform is really just freedom of thought, freedom of action, and freedom of your wallet. I want people to stay out of each other's bedrooms and stay out of each other's wallets. That's what I want.
Alrighty, fair enough. I guess we can talk about free speech. You know, one of the things that I've learned about free speech over the years with the Democrats and the Republicans, when it comes to third parties, they hate the concept of free speech and free assembly. I have never seen anybody more volatile towards free speech than the Democrats and the Republicans as parties in general, not as people, but god damn, I don't know why that's the case.
Yeah, so they don't want competition is really what it kind of boils down to me. And they don't want, the last thing they want on a debate stage, and this is why it's so hard for a third party to get on a debate stage, is last thing they want is for the people to see that you can have a rational conversation about things, that we can actually talk about the issues instead of just insulting one another. So, you can have an idea, say it to me, and instead of just me going, oh, well, you don't agree with me, you're an idiot. Because that's too easy. That's dismissive, right? You're not actually taking somebody's thoughts and into account, or their experiences, or how they got to that opinion. We've lost that a little bit, and I don't think the actual people have lost that. I think it's who our leaders are that show us like, oh, that's the way we have to be. So that would be a real problem for them if they actually got somebody up on a debate stage that says, okay, I'm not just going to insult you. I'm going to digest what your thoughts are and tell you facts on why they're either half right or half wrong or completely wrong. And here's my opinion on it. Now, and if you're a person that happens to be watching this and you agree with me, vote for me. But don't vote for me because I have the better one-liners and I have the better insults on the guy, or I dug up the more dirty stuff on the other party, or made up these things as about somebody. Oh, well, they didn't vote for this, and really the truth is that's this huge omnibus bill, and there's a bunch of different things in the bill, and no matter what you vote for it or not vote for it, I could pick out and say, well, there was a raise for the troops in here. Don't mind this over here that we were going to increase spending for as an ant project that we want to study these African ants for or whatever, and that's what I didn't want to vote for. Oh, you hate the troops because you didn't vote for a raise for the troops. It's like, no. First of all, we shouldn't be allowed to do omnibus bills anyway, but I won't go too deep into that. But they're afraid, is the truth. They're afraid of showing people that you can have reasonable, rational discussions, and you don't have to pick A or B. There's a bunch of other options out there. There's a bunch of other in-between thoughts. They don't want people to see that. They don't want the competition. That's the truth.
Fair enough. So, what kind of economic policies do you plan on promoting?
Promoting keeping more money in people's pockets, basically getting rid of things that are unnecessary. So everybody talks about wanting to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, but what does that really mean? And the best way to do that is to do it across the board, because you want to be fair, right? Like we have so many things that we sink taxpayer dollars in that are unnecessary. that could be done more efficiently if it was done more locally, either by the town or by the local community, or by local businesses. That we wouldn't have to take money out of people's paychecks, and then of course, because we're the government, we're funding it, we're not worried about how much things cost, or we're incentivizing people to spend more, because you know how those budgets work. They're like, oh, if we don't spend all this money by the end of the year, there's no incentive to save money basically for any local municipality. I want to change all that. I want to first off, take a complete look at everything and cut anywhere from 5 to 10% out of everything. So it's fair. So I'm not picking favorites. I'm not picking like, oh, but this is my program, can't cut that, but that's not my program, so we'll cut it 100%. That's a start. The next thing that you have to do is, if you have more money in people's pockets, they will be able to give more. So basically, by cutting taxes, you'll be able to have people give more efficiently, whatever their charity is, more efficiently, to increasing the infrastructure that is around. We leave that to the towns, because the businesses and the towns will do that themselves, because of course they're incentivized. Like we talk about all these greedy businesses. Guess what? These businesses will stay greedy, so they'll want to make sure that the infrastructure is there for when they get there. We don't have to force it, and they'll do it more efficiently than what any government organization could do.
Alrighty, fair enough. So earlier you mentioned omnibus bills. Tell me what that's all about.
It's one of the worst things that's ever happened to us as a country. Basically, so like obviously the most recent example would be what it was deemed the big beautiful bill. I call it the big beautiful disaster. But basically, you have 1,000 different things that are voted on in one bill. One. So this one vote that Congress cast has to say either you agree or disagree with a ton of stuff, instead of voting on these things individually, which is what I would like. Is I would like congressmen to have to go on record on each individual issue. So they can't hide behind, well, I didn't really want this in the bill, but in order to get this passed, I had to say yes. Or vice versa. They can say, well, I wanted the raise for the troops, but I had to say no because I didn't want this in the bill. Instead, like, if you don't want the ant project in Africa, put that up there, and you can either be on record saying, well, I really wanted us to spend the money on that, or I can say, okay, there's somebody that said, no, that's wasteful spending, let's not do it. Or if it's about a raise for the troops, just make it about a raise for the troops. Okay, don't put any other fluff in there. We should be able to vote on these things individually, and we would actually have a better idea of where Congress stood, as far as the individuals in Congress stood, if we did this. But again, there's not a big clamor from the big two to do this, because they like to be able to hide behind these things one way or the other, either saying that they were for or weren't against that, and then they can just shrug their shoulders if asked about it individually and say, oh, well, that's not what I wanted. Let's get these people on record. Let's get these things, instead of these huge bills where they can hide behind what they say they wanted and what they didn't want. Let's get these things in an individual manner, so that they have to be on record saying, oh, I did support this or I didn't support that, one at a time. It would not be hard to do.
Alrighty, fair enough. Next, let's talk about social policy and civil liberties and all that stuff.
Love it. Great topic.
So, what are your stances for social policy and civil liberties?
I believe wholeheartedly in all civil liberties that don't cause harm to others, whether I like them or not. Whether, if you like to smoke, like, whatever, not my business. I mean, there's enough information out there that says it's bad for you. If you still decide to do it, do it. It's not harm me. Yeah, don't do it in a crowded restaurant, of course, but go ahead, do it. I'm not gonna tax you for it, by the way. Okay. Same thing with if you want to drink. Go ahead. There's enough information out there that says what's good and bad about alcohol. Do to your body what you do to your own personal self. That's not on me to be your keeper, right? So And again, we've used taxes to kind of sway people's behavior. Like, hey, if you believe in green energy and you want to get an electric car, you want to put solar panels on your house, absolutely, go ahead, do it. If you believe in that, go ahead. But we shouldn't be taking taxpayer money from somebody else to subsidize you doing it and saying, yes, we encourage that behavior. We use taxation as a way of encouraging behavior of what the government says we think is right or wrong. That's not true civil liberties. True civil liberties is doing what you want to do in what you believe is right or wrong. Okay. And as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, you should have the right to do that and not either be penalized or incentivized from it by the gov, whether it be that a local municipality or a state or a federal level. So I'm a big, obviously, military guy. So I'm a big Second Amendment guy, which again has to go to the Constitution and it also has to go to civil liberties as well. There are, reasonable things that we can do as far as, extended background checks, that kind of stuff for gun laws, but you can't take people's right to carry away from them. And any responsible gun owner will go along with what are reasonable acts to take, because of course they don't want to lose their right to carry. Because that is, let's say that again, this is a constitutional right that we shouldn't even be talking about. And it's there to try to keep the power of the government down, which unfortunately has not been successful lately. But that's a big thing in my platform is making sure that we fight for people's civil liberties, that and whether I like them or not. I agree with your right to be able to have them. You see what I mean? There's a difference there, as far as I'm not saying I believe in some civil liberties and others, hey, we should make laws to make them go away. Whether I agree, whether I think you should be doing something or not has nothing to do with it. I believe in your right to do what you want with your personal property and your body. That's it. It's real simple, honestly.
Alrighty, fair enough. Since we are on the topic about guns, what's your opinion on ghost guns?
Ghost guns. That's a different one. Explain that to me a little bit.
From what I remember, ghost guns are basically a nickname that people use to describe 3D printed guns. And
okay, yep.
And there have been some. This has caused some controversy, but I want to know your opinion on ghost guns.
Good question. I'd have to do a little bit more research on that before I gave you a full opinion. So I actually have a nephew that lives in New Hampshire, and he works for 6 Hour, and he has so that is something I could definitely pick his brain about. He's obviously a very big Second Amendment guy as well. So obviously there causes some problems there with that, as far as being able to get them through security, that kind of stuff. What are they used for? I'd have to do a little bit more research. I'd want to have I don't want to shoot from the hip here, so to speak, to be on subject, giving you an answer on that. The big question is, why is someone developing a ghost gun, I guess. What's the purpose of it? And kind of go from there. So yeah, but before I want to give you a well thought out answer there, and not just make it up on the spot. So I'll have to do a little bit of research for you on that.
Absolutely, and I do think the risks of ghost guns are pretty legitimate. At the same time, though, I actually many do believe that the creation of ghost guns, 3D printed guns, some people do actually see it as consistent as their alignment towards gun rights, and that's actually been the case for the North Carolina Pirate Party. We believe in this. The North Carolina Pirate Party believes in the Second Amendment right, and we believed in the right to 3D printing, and we believe that is intertwined, and that includes ghost guns. So.
So to me, that's something to we can actually have like a reasonable, like an honest discussion about, you know what I mean? Instead of, so this is what the two big parties would do is, hey, if I'm red, I'm obviously going to take this side. If I'm blue, I'm actually going to, I actually want to have this. So this is something we can actually have a discussion on, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to, so that's another thing that makes me different too. If there's something new brought to the table, like I want to have a I want to talk about it. I'm not going to jump to an opinion. I'm not just going to, take the party side. I want to get all the information I can and then come into an informed decision on where I fall on it. Because there's a lot of shades of gray out there, as we actually know. There's like nothing that's black and white. So anyway, I would definitely be open to having I want to be informed about things before I make give an opinion, of course, which I hope makes me different than a lot of the politicians we have out there. Let's get informed first before we start spousing out things we don't know about. And have a discussion on it and see if there's some compromise we can come to as far as what makes sense. Because I believe in 3D printing and I believe in guns as well. So I honestly understand your point there. So let's have the discussion.
That's awesome. Anyways, I guess I'll conclude for the platform for now. So how was being in the military?
It was interesting. So obviously the years I was in, I signed up right before 9/11. I was in 2000, August 2000. So it was a combination of some of the best and worst years of my life. Being deployed, being overseas, was obviously tough. Losing guys I served with, losing guys that after we got out, losing guys after their time in service due to, either suicide or who knows what, several guys have heart conditions or, whatever. But it was definitely helped mold me and shape me. And I would say that we have too many leaders now that have never been to war that will give you an opinion about it very quickly. And that is not good. If we look at our last 4 presidents, none of them have served a day in combat in their life. And they're making decisions for soldiers. And that's wrong. They're not even taking advice from their advisors. So I think my military time gives me a good perspective, and actually having to be in combat and fighting wars, it gives me a different perspective on how to approach things and knowing what the consequences of actions are. It's easy to be the guy in the room that beats your chest and says you're the toughest guy in the room when you've got an army behind you, right? And you never actually have to deal with the consequences of your actions. So I know the consequences of those actions. I've had to see it. So that has also helped me kind of form my, I don't even know if you just want to say political views, but life views as far as, how I approach things. And again, knowing that there's no absolute right and wrong most of the time. It's very, very rare in this life where there's an absolute right or wrong. So it's important to understand perspectives and where people come from and how they reach, not just what their opinions are, but how they get to those opinions. What have they gone through that makes them think that way? Or it's also important to know if someone's just making stuff up because they're going along with their herd. We have a lot of herd mentality, unfortunately, in this country right now. My time in the military definitely helps me to kind of spot that, see that, and to be more understanding, and to know, the consequences of actions and to have more of a level head when going into things. And, it's not always good to play Timmy tough guy when you approach things, that doesn't work that way.
Understandable. Anyways, you also mentioned that you have been involved in a lot of businesses. What was that like?
Oh, that's a great experience. I love, I love building a business. When I first got into being a wealth manager, financial advisor, I definitely didn't come from money. We'll put it that way. My dad was a factory worker at Polaroid, and my mom worked for the post office. My dad worked for Polaroid for 33 years, and then after he retired, they went bankrupt and he lost his pension. So, I know the but he did okay because he was smart enough to put money away in his 401k, thankfully. But that again gives me a perspective. Like I when I first started, I didn't come from money, so I knocked on doors to build my business. I went out into neighborhoods, just introduced myself, said, "Hey, my name's Tim White. Here's what I do. I'm starting a local office. If you want to do business with me locally, come see me, have a conversation, and let me help you if I can." And I love that part of business is being able to see what people need, finding a niche. Um, so it was important for me that I did something that I felt really helped people and that made a difference. And of course, one of the biggest things you can help people with is making sure that they never run out of money, or making sure that when they do leave this world, that sorry, I got the dog. If you can tell, I'm a big dog guy. When they leave this world, that their money goes where they want to, which I can tell you, they want their money to go to their family or their charity of choice. They don't want it to go to the U.S. government, right? But those are the three places your money's going to go when you leave this world. So I try to elbow out Uncle Sam as much as possible, and I try to help people do that. But I loved building my business from the ground up. I'm very proud of that. I didn't get handed anything. I'm still building my business and still trying to make a difference. But I think most people, if they could actually, I think that would make us better. Honestly, if everybody could find their niche and build whatever talents that they have, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's no absolute entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur. There's whatever you do well, do it well, and find your niche that you can serve other people with it. And I think if we focus more on that, then what we can get off of other people, we would all be better off. But I love being a small business owner. It's honestly it's a pride of mine. I love being part of my community. I love going to my daughter's softball games and knowing the folks there, and it's that's my why, right? Being able to get up, being able to go help people, and seeing that making a little bit of difference in my local community. If everybody could make a little bit of difference in whatever they do, this world will obviously be a better place.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you worked in a boutique. What is a boutique and what's that like?
Oh no, my firm is what we would call a boutique firm
Oh,
because it's
oh,
a smaller firm. So I don't work for one of the the big wigs. I used to work for Merrill Lynch back in the day, but I decided I just couldn't be a part of the big corporate machine anymore. And it wasn't about the people, it was about the numbers. And I just didn't want to do that. So I just worked for a much smaller firm with a very local footprint. And that's what we focus on, is just helping local folks in the community. And, you don't have to be in part of the mega wealthy to do business with me. I had to get away from that. That was not aligning with my purpose, basically. Like I said, I didn't come from that world. I dabbled in it a little bit and decided that was just not for me. Which I no problem if you become mega wealthy, of course, that's fine. But the companies that serve them tend to lose focus on the main thing, which is truly helping people and not just getting money from people. You know what I mean? There's a slight difference, but there is a difference. When you go into a mindset like, hey, I want to earn this business and I want to do the right thing, and then I happen to get paid from it, that's you're winning, right? You're winning in life. You know what I mean? Make a good living, but not because I'm trying to become super rich. I do it because I'm trying to do the right thing. You know. So anyway, so just to correct the boutique, I never owned or ran a boutique. I have a boutique firm. That's a long-winded answer to answer that question. Sorry.
no. That's actually great. Um, Anyways, how's the campaign going right now?
I think it's going pretty well. I've got some good local backing. It's obviously it's a learning curve. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. And like I said, I was very reluctant to get into it, but you know, it's definitely a learning curve and figure out how the things work. There's obviously a lot of bureaucracy that goes on, even with just getting into a campaign. There's obviously different coming at it from a third party perspective because you don't have these automatic, you don't have automatic money. You don't have automatic places on a debate floor. You've got to do a lot more work as a third party to even get noticed or even recognized, to be on a ballot, for crying out loud, is there's a lot more hoops to jump through, which is, I believe, of course, done on purpose.
Alrighty. Let's see here. So what is this district like? What's it all about?
Say that again, James.
So what is this district like? Tell me more about this district.
So it's mostly Brunswick County, which is where I've lived, like I said, since 2010. A little bit of New Hanover County as well, downtown area, which is awesome. I used to have an office in downtown. I love it. But I think if it's real Main Street America is what I would say. It's really just people trying to go about their business, live their normal lives. I think it really bodes well for people that are just want to be able to do their own thing and have no government interference on what they do. I think it's why it really bodes well for a third party representative, especially a libertarian, to actually make some waves. You know what I mean? That you can actually. I think there's a lot of people that if they could just hear where I'm coming from, even if they don't agree with everything, they're probably going to agree with the mindset as far as, that I want to have discussions. I want to listen. I want to do what I genuinely want to do the right thing. And if it's, I at least want to hear from other people like me that even if they don't share my exact same opinions, that go about it with the same process. Because, you can't always change people's opinions, but if we could change the process that people go about it, as far as not just automatically jumping to well, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, there's no in between. Just hearing each other out, I think that would be great for us. So I think the district bodes well for that, because when like living and being around the district and interacting with people every day, whether we 100% agree on things or not, we're having conversations. We're not having arguments, right? Like that's really what it's all about, is, us all working towards the same type of goal, which is just, hey, let's have a conversation about things. Let's figure out what's the most rational thing to do for everybody, and let's keep free. And let's always keep in mind that people deserve their freedoms and their right to choice on things, whether I agree with it or not. And let's keep the government out of things. We don't need the government in our business as much as they are. Let's as citizens, we can come to most agreements on things, I believe, without government intervention. Government intervention is the worst thing that can happen, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. You don't want it. Trust me.
Alrighty, fair enough. Is there a specific issue that you feel that no one is talking about?
That's a good question. There's a lot of issues being talked about all the time. Obviously, the biggest issue on the floor right now is, of course, the war, which is obviously a very big concern for me. I can't think of something that nobody, because as far as somebody's talking about something somewhere, always. Sorry. But anything that really grinds my gears that I don't think anyone's paying attention to. Well, I guess maybe no one's talking about it as far as the way elections work, which I had to do obviously, like I said, hard learning curve here. But as far as the way the system is rigged against somebody having a different opinion rather than the big two. I don't think a lot of Americans, because most Americans are doing their day-to-day jobs, so they don't pay attention to the way elections work or what the political cycle is or anything like that. But there is a reason why we haven't had an independent presidential candidate since Ross Perot on a debate stage. There's a reason behind that. And it's because the Democrats and Republicans have set it up so that's damn near impossible to get on that stage with them. And it's not just at a federal level. Come to find out that it works that way. It's at a local level too. So I definitely, if anything, no matter where you fall in the left or right or somewhere in between, you should want our elections to be fair, and not just fair as far as how we tally the votes, but fair as far as who gets to be involved, who your representation is, how many different voices are actually able to be heard. You shouldn't have to wave a certain color flag in order to be a representative of the people or to be heard by the people to try to be the representative. So I think that's actually a start as far as trying to go bring not just the district, but the state in the right direction, is to bring awareness to how rigged the election system is. And again, I'm not talking about balloting. I'm not talking about counting votes and all that. That's a little bit overblown as far as I'm concerned. But as far as how it's rigged, from who can actually be involved, the how you get money, how, like, it is the whole thing is meant so that we're only going to ever have two parties, and that's a problem.
Agreed. So do you have any like social media?
I do, not a ton. So I have my LinkedIn page. I have my Facebook page, of course. I have an Instagram, but my Instagram honestly is pretty private. I'm honestly, like I said, this is my first dabble into politics. Obviously, there's a Libertarian Party page that I would send people to. But I've been it's interesting because I've been a private guy for most of my life, other than dealing with my clients. So as far as getting out there and putting myself out there, that's been a little bit different. So I have them. I've used them mostly for work. Yes, just Tim White, and I'm Tim White on Facebook, Tim White on LinkedIn. And that's about it. I don't have an X account in my Instagram. It's really just for me and my family.
Alrighty, fair enough. Since we still got some time left, so where are you at right now?
Brunswick County, Leland. Like I said, Leland was my main office. Actually, just building out a new office in Magnolia Greens, in which is one of the neighborhoods out here in Leland and coastal Carolinas here, which is at any day during the week, you're either going to find me down in the Charlotte or you're going to find me up in Leland. Both north and south of the county. So I'm all over the county. So I get it's fun because I get to see people from all areas within the district. Just taking a little bit of time in between meetings, honestly, and be able to have this good conversation with you. I appreciate that. You're taking the time and letting people know that there's another option out there, which is the first step, right? Is to have people know that I've grown sick of people just saying, well, you got this or that, so you got to pick the lesser of two evils. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't have to be that way. We can, hey, let's at least make it the lesser of five evils or something. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be set up the way that it is. So I appreciate you giving me a platform and letting me talk to you for a little while, and hopefully the conversation resonates with some people. And if people have questions, I think that's great. I welcome any and all, and getting the word out, and just want to have an open conversation with people and get real change, get real honesty, get real integrity back into the fold. Like I said, whether whether you agree with me or not, I'm always going to be honest with you. I'm always going to, we've lost that. Nobody believes in their government anymore. Nobody thinks they're telling the truth anymore because they've shown us so many times. I want to help change that in whatever way I can.
Absolutely. So, where do you recommend people go whenever they visit Brunswick County?
Oh, so many good places. Well, you got to go to beaches, obviously. Oak Island's a really cool fan spot of mine. Holden Beach, really gorgeous. Go to my brother actually has a restaurant in Leland called The Pit. The best barbecue you're going to have in Brunswick County. So I got to throw a shout out to my brother, of course. And try the burnt ends and the brisket there. Phenomenal. Spike's Ice Cream down in Southport. If you've got an ice cream hankering, go to Spike's. That's the spot. La Volte, if you're more upscale, kind of, if you want to take your wife out for a nice date. La Volte down on Ocean Isle Beach, great spot to go. Ocean Isle Beach is gorgeous, by the way. The Brunswick County beaches are just, honestly, are awesome. There's so many cool. Golf Barn right on 17 in Bolivia. If you want to go hit some golf balls, shout out to my girl Kristen that's out there. That's the GM out there. She's always hustling, running that thing amazingly. But it's great. They got mini golf there. They got the food truck there now. They serve good food. And you go hit a bucket of balls, and it's kind of like Top Golf, how you can, rent a bay and, play games. So it's fun for the whole family. There's a lot of great places in the Brunswick County, but definitely I'm glad I got to hit on some of them anyway. Those are some of my favorite.
That is awesome. So, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie of all time is Gladiator. So that's to me, that's classic. There's so many. So my favorite movie of all time is Gladiator, and then my favorite comedy of all time is Wedding Crashers. So as far as movies that I quote the most, those would be the two. But I'm your typical guy in your 40s where I can bring out movie quotes like nobody's business. So somehow they always, but those. Oh, and the movie Friday actually comes up a lot when I do quotes for whatever reason. But those are, so I would definitely say Gladiator is my favorite. My favorite comedy of all time is Wedding Crashers.
All right, that is awesome. What's your favorite food?
Ooh, gonna have to be a T-bone steak with a baked potato. You can't go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with meat potatoes. I'm definitely a meat and potatoes guy. So you give me that, I'm a happy guy.
Alrighty, fair enough. What's your favorite drink?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So I'll say any good bourbon. I'm become a bit of a bourbon connoisseur. So I've got like 10 different ones in the cabinet right now. So we'll do at my VFW. Me and a few of the guys will do bourbon tastings like once a month. We'll all bring like 5 different bottles and try different ones. So that is a lot of fun. I drink a lot of water. I know that's boring, but bourbon or water. But I'll have to say bourbon as far as alcohol goes, and then I honestly just drink a lot of water during the day. It's what my typical go-to is.
Alrighty, fair enough. Let's see here. What else can we talk about? So how's the Libertarian Party doing right now?
I think we're doing better. I think I think it's gaining traction because people are finally getting to the point where they are actually fed up. Like sometimes you need people to hit a breaking point or hit their rock bottom before they finally are like, okay, enough is enough. Like but they've been in that situation where How do you cook a frog, right? You do it slowly. They're basically, people have been frogs in a boiling pot for a while, and they've just been slowly turning up the heat, slowly turning up the heat, slowly turning up the heat. But I think finally people are starting to realize, oh my gosh, we're boiling in water here. Like we actually have to look to jump out somewhere. So you know, we in the past, libertarians have not, because libertarians on the most part are anti-political. We really just, we don't like the government, and we want them to stay out of our lives. We actually believe in small government, unlike Republicans who say they believe in small government but then keep wanting to grow the government, make it bigger. We actually believe in small government. So, but because of that, there's not too many of us that are like gung-ho to get involved with it. But of course, there's many more like me that are like, okay, I have to do something now. Like, I've finally gotten to the point where I'm like, I just can't sit idly by anymore. And I think a lot of people, as far as what they're looking at as far as decisions, I think even if they're not looking at the Libertarian Party, they're looking at some type of third party. They're looking for somebody that represents them much better than the blue or red folks do. So as a group, I think we are getting traction. Even if you just look at like podcasters who have gained the most traction over the last couple of years. Obviously Joe Rogan has very libertarian leaning thought processes. Dave Smith, he's had huge years the last 2 years. Like, so their following is growing, and they, more than anything, and I'm not saying, obviously Dave Smith is definitely a libertarian. I'm not saying Joe Rogan is, but he has a lot of libertarian leaning thought processes and ideas. So if you look at where the ears are going as far as what people are open to listening to now, they're more open to listening to what before people didn't even know what our platform was. You know what I mean? They were like, they just thought we're a bunch of, either crazy anarchists or, we're just non-interventionists. People starting to figure out, oh yeah, this whole time they didn't want to get into wars that we didn't really need to be in. They're starting to see that, like, oh yeah, we don't really need to be in Iran. We didn't need to be in Libya. We are wasting a lot of money on that. Ron Paul was right. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at speeches from Ron Paul back in 2000 or 2002, you can listen to them today and you're like, oh my gosh, he had it all right 20 years ago. So I think, as far as, it's been tough because our party is very factual when we go into things, and when we try to be reasonable and rational, and we try to stick to the argument, which is tough in a political society where whatever gets the most ears, you don't have to be right, you just have to get people to listen. We want to be right about things, and if we don't know, we actually say we don't know. It's different. But I think it's refreshing for people now. So I do think it's gaining traction, and I do think that people actually want to have conversations now, and they don't want to be part of the herd, and they don't want to just be told what to think anymore. I think social media and, honestly, podcasts and things like that, as far as not having to just listen to mainstream media, has helped us a lot.
All right, that's awesome. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, just wanted to thank you again. Just wanted to encourage anybody that's listening to this, go do research. If you truly love civil liberties, you truly love freedoms, you truly believe in the Constitution, look into other options than what Republicans and Democrats have been giving you. You deserve better than that. And I think most people know they deserve better than that. They just don't realize that they have other options. So I just want to be here to be another option and let people know that I'm open to conversations. That's what it's all about, really.
That is great to hear. With that being said, everyone, that's going to be it for this episode of the Political Freedom Fighters podcast. If you all have enjoyed, please hit the like button down below. Type in a comment for any suggestions that you may have. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and hit the notification bell so that way you can be notified on any new episodes of the Political Freedom Fighters podcast. And share it, of course, so that way everyone will know about this podcast and we can get the algorithm on our side. And with that being said,
you gotta get the algorithm.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all later.
Thanks so much, James.